Welcome to episode 5 of the 4 Out 1 In podcast with your host, George Hamilton III.
And Carlos Costas.
How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. School is about to wrap up. I know me and you both had finals or have finals coming up, like the end of the school year and everything. But I'm excited to get into the summer and watch more of the NBA action. How you been?
Good. Just finished my last finals Wednesday. For what I've known, for what I know from checking all of my grades, I know I got 3 A's, so I'm just waiting on this last class to figure out if I got a 4.0 or a 3.75. So,
Hey, George is not only a basketball mind; he's an academic mind too. Don't
yep,
sleep on him.
yep. I mean, basketball, soccer, academics, all of that.
He can do it all. We love it. All right, let's jump into the basketball talk right now. There's a game going on right now. We're just gonna go through these series like we have been like the last episode, and we know a couple series closed out. But again, let's start with the game that's happening right now, which is Sixers Raptors. Currently going into the fourth quarter, they have a 25-point lead right now, or 20, excuse me, about a 20-point lead right now going into the fourth. So it looks like the Sixers might close the series after this game. But what did you see so far?
Going back to our last episode, I said the Raptors would they'd take at least a game at home. Philly would finish it in 5. The Raptors actually took game 4 and game 5 in Philly, or game 4 in Toronto and game 5 in Philly, which was very surprising to me. And at least in game 4, it was sort of the Raptors coming out and Pascal Siakam leading the charge, playing like an all NBA player. And then the supporting cast basically followed suit. They got good performances from Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Thaddeus Young pitched in, I think, like 10 plus points and so on and so forth. And the supporting cast just played well. And then in game 5, I mean, Philly came out flat to the point where, I mean, they were booed by their fans after the first half. And Joel Embiid didn't play well. Maxi didn't have the games that he had, I think, in the first 3, maybe 4 games. And then, I mean, Harden hasn't played up to the potential of what people expected from him in the first 5 games. So, I mean, as you said, game 6 is happening right now on Thursday, April 28th. But this, as I said, as I was thinking going back after game 5, I was like, the Sixers could not let this series get to a game 7. They were probably the favorites at home in a game 7, but just for the sake of morality and all of that, you could not let the headline say, oh, the Raptors come back down 3-0 to force a game 7. Because at that point, anything can happen. And they could have a game like they did in game 5 where they come out flat and the Raptors had come out and just fire on all cylinders. So, I mean, Philly, they need to, I mean, it looks by the looks of it, I mean, with 12 minutes left and them up 20, unless the Raptors have a significant fourth quarter, uh, the Sixers will probably wrap this series up to face the Heat. And that's a matchup I want to see. But what are your thoughts on this series as well?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right that the Sixers cannot afford for the series to go to a game 7. I think James Harden has a lot to prove. Just going off like the idea, like, is it worth it asking out from the Nets and forcing a trade to Philly? Is it worth it for him to do that? I think Joel Embiid has a lot to prove too. If this game goes to 7, and if they lost, just because he is an MVP candidate, and there's a lot of questions on if he can be the one guy on a championship team. And I think Doc Rivers has a lot to prove too, with all the talent in the rosters he's had. Hasn't really went on a run for being the caliber of coach that he's known to be. So I do think that they have a lot to lose if it goes to a game seven. But again, probably won't go to a game seven after this unless Chris Boucher adds on to the 20 and 10 he has. 23 points, 10 rebounds, 25 minutes. Go Ducks. But I don't think the Sixers are going to lose this one. I think Embiid is going to get the last laugh over Drake. Let's move over to the 1-8 that ended, which is the Heat and the Hawks. What did you think on that last game, Game 5?
Game 5, Oladipo. I mean, Jimmy Butler wasn't going to play, and Jimmy Butler, I shouldn't say wasn't going to play, but he got ruled out, I think, hours before game time. And I was expecting Victor Oladipo to come into the starting lineup and step up, and he did. I can't remember how many points he put up, but he played like a true sort of point guard. And obviously, you know what you're gonna get from Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero. But I mean, for him to come up in that big moment after all he's gone through, it was just a sight to see. And I mean, Miami, or I should say Atlanta, they kind of kept it close. It was sort of Miami pulled away and then Atlanta would come back, and then Miami would pull away and Atlanta would come back again. But I mean, the Miami Heat, they pulled it out because that's what Heat culture does with Eric Spoelstra at the helm. And I mean, as for Atlanta, this series was over by, like, I want to say even game 3 was, even though Trae Young had the floater to win them the game, he didn't even play well in that game. And once he wasn't playing well, it was one of those things where this series is basically over, because if you don't get at least 30 and 10 from Trae Young on like good efficiency, this team kind of has no chance to beat the Heat. And that's what we kind of saw in game 4, where Trae Young struggled and then the Heat basically dominated the second quarter en route to like beating them by 20 plus, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure. We both had the Heat in 6. And I mean, the one game that the Hawks won were again off of buzzer beaters. So in theory, Miami should have swept. Yeah, in that last game, Trae Young could not get a shot to fall. I think Miami's switchability, just in general, the entire series, have caused Trae Young a lot of problems, which is expected from a good defensive team like they are. And again, Heat culture, they always look like they're down 3-1 in the series just off pure hustle, like eye tests from individual players, which is so crazy because Miami always finds guys. It's insane how they do that. But I think I guess a bright spot for the Hawks was DeAndre Hunter in that game, having 35 and 11. He looked good out there in a game that everyone else was struggling and they needed to get the ball in the basket. And DeAndre Hunter did that, being a little more than a 3-and-D guy that he's projected to be. But all things considered, the Hawks in general, probably a disappointing season, to say the least, in its entirety, going to the conference finals last year, ending up in the play-in, and then almost getting swept by the 1 seed. But credit to Miami, they're proving why they're a 1 seed, and I think they're going to be a scary team playing forward down the road. I think they're only going to play with more momentum than they already do, and they build off of it very well. So excited for that.
Before before we move
Mhm.
on, you brought up DeAndre Hunter, and that 35-point game was really, he was, I don't want to say it, but the sole reason why they were kind of still in that game, to be honest. And with him, I always knew he had the talent. I mean, it's just with him, it's his health and how healthy can he stay on the court, because he always has like little nagging injuries that turn into like month-long injuries. And for him, it's just staying on the court. I mean, we'll probably get into like off-season talk and what teams should do in our opinions, like after the season is after the playoffs is over. But in terms of Atlanta, they got a good one in DeAndre Hunter. It's just about him being healthy and being able to stay on the court.
No, for sure. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, now we're going to go down a rabbit hole about off-season moves and just moves in general, the Hawks. But just one thing to point point out is you know that they made the decision for this DeAndre Hunter when choosing between Reddish or Hunter when they made that trade for New York. This is the DeAndre Hunter that they were banking on getting down the road. So excited to see if that pans out and everything. And I'm a Cam Reddish guy, so hopefully in New York he can turn his young career around and everything. But moving on, sticking with the East, though, the more exciting, I guess, series that everyone has been talking about. First off, we're talking about the Celtics and Nets. And first thing I want to say is, man, were we wrong? We both had the Nets in 7, which looking back at it, I mean, you can argue that it wasn't a crazy prediction just because, I mean, why are you ever going to like bet against KD and Kyrie in the playoffs? But to our surprise and everyone's surprise, the Celtics swept in pretty, I want to say, pretty dominant fashion. That they won every game. So just as a series in general, um, what are your thoughts on it? This is crazy.
I mean, if anyone had Celtics in 4, you're lying about that. Like, if you say Celtics in 5, I'll give you that. If it wasn't 6 or 7, like, oh, if you didn't have the Celtics or Nets in 6 or 7, then like something's wrong with you, because like this was supposed to be a good series. This was deemed the, I don't want to say the NBA finals, but this was sort of the NBA finals of the East in terms of first round matchups, because this was the one everyone wanted to see. And I mean, there's nothing more to say. KD struggled throughout the series except for the last game, and then Kyrie struggled throughout the series except for the first game. Uh, the Celtics did a great job of limiting KD and Kyrie. Their game plan was simple. We're not gonna let KD and Kyrie beat us. They can score all the points they want, but as long as we keep the supporting cast to a minimum in terms of points and letting them beat us, we'll be fine. And there were a few things I noticed in, I think, game 3 and game 4. One has to deal with the Nets. And there were a few plays where they got KD, I think in like the mid post or the low post. And it ended up being 2 buckets out of those plays. I can't remember exactly what happened off the top of my head, but the next play after those 2 plays were ran, they went back to giving him the ball in like the high post. And when that happened, the help defender, either it was Brown, or it was either Brown or Smart, depending on if Tatum or Grant Williams was guarding KD, they would come over and help, and KD would turn the ball over. And basically, going pivoting to Boston, their game plan was simple. They'll leave Bruce Brown open because yes, he's a 40% free, oh my god, 40% 3-point shooter, quote unquote. But as most people said in last year's series between the Hawks and Atlanta, the Knicks are not Hawks and Atlanta, Hawks and the Knicks. The Knicks had several 40.3% shooters, but I mean, in the playoffs, it's a whole different ball game. And so the Celtics basically said, we'll leave Bruce Brown open and see if and live with the 3-point shots he takes. And if he makes them, we'll live with it. And that's literally what that series was. I mean, Curry had a few games where he played well. Drummond had a few games where he kind of was okay, but for the Celtics, the game plan was just not let KD and Kyrie beat us. And for the Celtics, in terms of what they did well, you knew what you were going to get from JT and JB. Simple as that. It just came down to the supporting cast. Marcus Smart being the catalyst for offense and defense, offense sort of, but defense primarily. Played well on both ends of the ball. Al Horford and Grant Williams shot 50+% from 3-point range, and literally, if those two are shooting 50% from the 3, in for a series, like I don't know how you beat Boston in that sense, especially if you're getting production from both of them. You're getting production from Peyton Pritchard off the bench, which was very surprising to see him get playoff minutes like he did in game two and I think game three. And just all in all, a complete all around effort. Props to Ime Udoka for putting up a solid game plan against the Nets and KD and Kyrie. And that's all I pretty much have to say for that series. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think in general, I think again, yeah, like you said, credit to Ime Udoka, amazing game plan, and to the Celtics, like you said, Marcus Smart was definitely a catalyst for that team. I think the biggest thing that I enjoyed watching in this entire series was the Celtics defense. Um, it's they have, I think they just have a bunch of smart defenders, and they all bought into the game plan and knew their roles. I think their help rotation is like insane. That every shot that the Nets had, like they didn't make it easy for them the entire series, and they kept it on for 4 straight games, which is a big reason why they swept and everything. But yeah, on the defensive side, Jason Tatum, oh my God, he sometimes he looked like a defensive player of the year candidate guarding KD on an island. Um, so yeah, I think the Celtics just showed why they were number one, and that like their kind of hot streak towards the end of the season wasn't nothing. They're definitely a contender in the East coming out, and kind of pivoting to their next round matchup is the Bucks, who beat the Bulls in five. I predicted the Bucks would sweep. I think the one win was the one win. If it's a 4-1 series, George had Bucks in six. But what do you think on the 5 game series?
5 game series. Whoo, that I expected the Bulls to play way better at home. I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, I said they'd take at least both games at home, or at least, yeah, I did say they'd take both games at home, and then Milwaukee would basically win game five and game six. And boy, was I wrong. The Bucks came out in game three and game four and just wiped them off the court. It was pretty bad. I mean, I stopped watching. I think both. No, I didn't catch game four because I was out playing soccer, but I caught game three. And game three, I stopped watching, I think, after either the second quarter or like 3 or 4 minutes into the third quarter because it wasn't even close. Milwaukee literally showed their dominance. I mean, Zach LaVine going for to pivot for the Bulls. Zach LaVine was playing on a knee injury, so we didn't get to see him at full 100%. And DeMar DeRozan tried to do everything he could, but this Bucks team, they showed why they are the defending champions without Chris Middleton. They got Grayson Allen and Bobby Portis to step up and be really huge off the bench. You knew what you were going to get from Giannis. I mean, Giannis had, I think, like either 20, no, he might have had 30 in game four. And I think he only scored like 18 in game three. But game three, they got production from literally everyone: Drew Holiday, Bobby Portis, Grayson Allen. I want to say Brooke Lopez and some of the other pieces on their team. And then game four, they got Grayson Allen to score 27 points on 6 threes made. And if that is happening, I mean, the Bucks, along with Giannis and Drew Holiday, if you're getting 25 plus point performances from them two, and Grayson Allen is adding 25 off the bench, I mean, it's going to be hard to beat them even without Middleton. And as for the Bulls, uh, this is this is I'm not surprised that they were a first round out. I mean, they dealt with a lot of situations over the course of this season, COVID being one of them, injuries being another. And I mean, for them to go out in the first round, I mean, it's not surprising, but this was a big stepping stone point for them, going from out of the playoffs last year to being in the playoffs this year and not having to be in the play-in. It's just something they can build on. I expect Zach LaVine to be back full 100% next season. DeMar, is there for like 2 more years. I need to see Vooch be improve 3-point shooting wise and defense wise. But I mean, there's really, we'll get into the offseason talk late after the season, as I said. But in terms of the Bucks, this matchup against the Celtics is going to be really interesting. What's your thoughts on it too?
Absolutely, but just going back to it, you made a good point that the Bulls, this is a great defining point in their franchise's kind of direction, from being a lottery team to being a top 6 seed, avoiding the play-in, and losing to the defending champs, and playing the defending champs is never easy. And to the Bucks, again, like, they are the defending champs. They know what it takes to win a championship, having needing guys to step up in the absence of Chris Middleton, having them step up, which was big, like you said. And then to your point of the Bulls not playing very well at home, I know Chicago and Milwaukee are not very far from each other. And no disrespect to Bulls fans or anyone in the United Center, but I'm sure the defending champs, like the Bucks fans, I'm sure they traveled, all of them, to Chicago for this. Your team will just got off of a championship and continuing a long playoff run. I think the Bulls were not going to have any easy games, whether in Milwaukee or Chicago. That's why I had them sweeping. But yeah, to the next series against the Celtics, I think this is going to be another great series. I might ask you for a prediction right now, but I'll let you think about it while I make these couple points. I think Chris Middleton being out is going to be huge for them, because you're not going to get like 20 points from Grayson Allen or Bobby Portis every game with the defenders that the Celtics have. I mean, they showed that they shut down pretty much the entire Nets roster on the defensive side, and talent wise, I think you would say that KD and Kyrie obviously are more talented on the offensive end than probably the entire Bucks roster. And the Celtics playing as good of the defense and momentum, just sweeping a team that everyone thought was going to be that everyone thought was a title contender is going to be crazy. And them playing Giannis, I think Giannis is going to have a lot of offensive, like a big offensive load to carry for his team. And I'm very much excited to see how the Celtics and Ime Udoka, how they plan to match up with Giannis, and just the defensive scheme, just adding on to the first round. I think that's what I'm excited to watch the most. But George, prediction in the second round, Celtics Bucks.
Give me. I got the Celtics in 6.
I'm with that. I was thinking the same thing. I think the Celtics in 6. It's kind of hard to see the Celtics losing a series after being that dominant in the first round. And not to say that, well, what I was thinking was like the Bucks kind of had a cakewalk compared to the Celtics first round, but I'm not going to disrespect the Bulls like that. I think they could have put a good series up against anyone. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Do you think the Celtics might have a little bit of a burnout, even though they did sweep, but it was a hard fought 4 games, I'll tell you that, compared to the Bucks, who I guess you can kind of say were cruising. I mean, they won games by big margins. So, I mean, what do you think? Is it going to be like I don't think Milwaukee loses at home. That's my prediction. I don't think, if they're playing in Milwaukee, I don't see them losing.
I think the Celtics can take if we both said six, the Celtics split both games. They split game one and game two. Then Milwaukee will split game three and game four. And then I got the Celtics winning at home. Celtics winning at home in games. They were the second seed, right? Yeah, second seed. Game six and game five. So I should say Celtics win game one, Milwaukee wins game two, Celtics win game three, Milwaukee wins game four, and then the Celtics take game five and game six.
Yeah, now that you said it, I can see that happening too. I do. I don't know if we're going to do like game by game predictions, but I can see the Celtics losing one at home. Just I don't know. It just feels like the type of series that they'll probably drop a game, one like game one or game two, whichever one. Then they'll pick it back up um, and bring home the series in like a game five when they're back in Boston or something. But yeah, excited to see that one. Now, are we transitioning to the other side of the country for this?
Yeah, before we move on, I do think going back to the Celtics Bucks prediction, I mean, if the Celtics guarded KD and Kyrie the way they did, they should have no problem stopping Giannis. Giannis, yes, he does have a bag, but let's be honest, it's not as deep as KD's. Like he doesn't have the handle and the pull up like KD does. But I mean, they who knows? The Celtics might go back to what 20 was that 2018 2019 and pull up and put up the wall and say we're gonna make Drew Holiday, Grayson Allen, Bobby Portis beat us. They had the one game, they had the two games versus the Bulls, but can they do this for an entire series?
Hey, Giannis's bag. Giannis got the same bag as Derrick Henry. Just put your head down and run straight.
Getting into that football bag, I see.
All right, let's move to the West Coast for this one.
All
Um,
right.
Steph Curry, or should I say Jordan Poole, and the Warriors take the Nuggets out in five. What do you think about that?
You could have said Steph Curry. I mean, the man showed out yesterday.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I just wanted the headline.
Game three for the Warriors. They got the production from Steph, Clay, and they got the production from Steph, Clay, and Jordan Poole. So that wasn't surprising. They did end up winning that game pretty much because the defense was the factor in the last 3 minutes of game three. They shut down the Nuggets. I don't even think they scored in those last 3 minutes. And Curry and Poole took over. And then game four was basically the same thing, except the Nuggets, the Jokic's supporting cast basically came out and they played well. Gordon had, I think, like 20, 21 or something like that. And Monte Morris had like 26. And then Will Barton hit, while he only had two made shots, he hit the biggest shot to basically give the Nuggets the win in that game as Draymond fouled out, which ended up being huge late in that fourth quarter. And then game five, the Nuggets pretty much it was back. I shouldn't say back and forth. The Nuggets had a lead, and then the Warriors would kind of storm their way back into it, and then the Nuggets would pull away, and the Warriors would storm back, and then late in that fourth quarter, it was the Curry show. Curry took over, hit I think like I want to say three, I want to say at least three threes back to back to back, and then I think someone else scored, and then he hit another three. So Curry, he took over last night. Jordan Poole struggled last night. Same with Clay. Clay, I mean, he was I wouldn't say on and off, but he wasn't like himself in game three and game four. But they got very good production from Gary Payton the second off the bench. I think he had like 15 points, hit I think two clutch threes late in that fourth quarter, and basically delivered the win for the Warriors to basically give them the series in five. Do you want me to speak on the Nuggets as well?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I mean, Jokic had what, like 28, 19, and 8. So I mean, he did his thing for the series. It was as we said in the previous episodes, it was going to come down to can the supporting cast step up. And I mean, Gordon played well last night. He came out of the gate scoring. I think he had 11 of Denver's first 19 points. Can't remember what he finished with, but I don't know if Will Barton played pretty particularly well, but they got pretty good production from Bones Highland and DeMarcus Cousins off the bench. I think DeMarcus Cousins put up like, I want to say 19 or close to 21, which surprisingly, I didn't know that was his career high. I honestly thought it was more, but it's kind of not surprising considering I think he had only been in the playoffs twice, obviously once with the Pelicans and then once with the Warriors. Um, but I'm just curious to see how this team is going to be next year. They're going to get a healthy Jamal Murray back. Hopefully, Michael Porter Jr. doesn't have any more back issues to where he can play at 100%. And I just want to see this Nuggets team at full strength because let's be honest, they played well the last 3 games of this series. You can make the argument the series could have been tied 2-2 if not for the game 3 lapse where they couldn't score in the last 3 to 4 minutes of that game. But this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with next season, along with our team, the Clippers. And so I'm just curious to see what this team will bring next season. They got for for a rookie like Bones Highland to get to give production at like he did in this series. He's only going to get better from during the off season. So, and then I mean, hopefully they keep guys like Boogie and Uncle Jeff on the roster to give them some veteran leadership. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with this team next year.
Hey, shout out to DeMarcus Cousins. If any of you guys know me, you know that Boogie is probably top 5 favorite players of all time, in my opinion. At his peak, he is a top 5 center. I don't know if I can go that far, but shout out to DeMarcus Cousins. I think for the off season for the Nuggets, definitely get everyone back healthy because I would love to see that team. I'm not even sure if we didn't really see a lot of the team at full strength. Like the last time MPJ and Jamal and everyone played healthy, it was probably what, like the bubble. But even then, injuries still held them back. That's when Jamal Murray got injured.
I mean,
So
oh, well, I mean, you could say last year, because it was like 2 weeks ago 2 weeks ago last year, Jamal got injured in the Chase Center, and that was his ACL tear. And then I mean, MPJ only played like 9 games this season, but you can continue.
did he not get hurt in the bubble? I'm just imagining it.
Yeah, no, he didn't get hurt in the bubble.
Oh man, I must have been in the bubble with them. I don't remember that time at all. But but shout out to the Warriors for winning this. Hopefully in the next round they can whoever they match up against. First of all, who do you want to see before we even get into this? Who do you want to see the Warriors play? We're moving on to the next series here, but who do you want to see the Warriors play?
That's who, Memphis or the Wolves?
Minnesota. Yeah.
Oh, personally, I need to see a rerun of Memphis and Golden State just because I mean Memphis Golden State last year in the play, and a that could have been a 7 game series in itself. So to see both teams at full strength for a 7 game series, that would be fun. But I wouldn't be opposed to Cat, Anthony Edwards, and the Wolves running it with Stephen Curry and the Warriors.
Oh my
But
God, dude. The I remember there's like a video clip after that game with like Steph Curry with the towel over his head, just like kind of blank staring into the like the game when it was finishing. Man, you know if they match up, Curry's gonna want it. Like he's gonna come out hungry. Not that he came out flat or anything at all, but yeah, going to the Grizzlies Timberwolves series. Yeah, let's start there. Talking about the Grizzlies winning Game 5. What are your thoughts on that?
Uh, so we start game five and basically work our way to game three, or start game three and work our
Yeah,
way to
let's
game five.
let's start more recently, work our way back. Let's backtrack it this time.
Okay. Game five, back and forth. Game of was it a game of runs? Maybe no, that was game four. Game five, I think Minnesota was up by 13 late in the third. And then basically Ja had the poster on Malik Beasley, which put the crowd on basically lifted the crowd onto its feet, and the what is it called? FedEx Forum, I think. FedEx Forum is on its feet for the rest of that game, including the fourth quarter, as John Moran and Desmond Bain basically willed the Grizzlies back into that game, along with guys like Brandon Clark and Tyus Jones. And that game pretty much had everything you were looking for if in a basket in like late in the fourth. I don't know if you caught that play. The Wolves ran for I think it was I'm assuming it was for Anthony Edwards, but that play after the timeout was chef's kiss beautiful. I can't remember who set the back screen for Anthony Edwards to get to the corner three that passed by. I think was it D'Lo? Might have been D'Lo or Patrick Beverly.
D'Lo, one of the two, but I know McDaniel set that screen.
Yeah. D'Lo or Patrick Beverly, that bounce pass perfectly to Ant so he could catch it and just rise in the corner. And as soon as he shot it, I was watching with my roommates. And as soon as he shot it, I was like, this is going. And I called the play too. Like before it happened, I was like, Anthony Edwards is probably going to get a down screen for Cat from Cat or whoever the power forward was on the court. And he was just it was going to be his shot, which was basically his moment. And then he kind of made the rookie mistake of gambling on obviously the next play. He gambled to try to get the steal on Ja Morant's inbound pass, and Ja basically had a free lane to the hoop because I think Cat was out of the paint and I think he was out of the play. So uh it was unfortunate that it happened like that. I know Anthony Edwards got picked on a screen, but he didn't really need to reach in that situation because Ja was going to try and get to the basket, which he did. And that was basically the game. And if we continue on to game four was literally a game of runs. I don't know if you saw it, but the animal protest had me dying. The animal protest had me dying, especially because when the security guard, I honestly thought the security guard was a coach for a second. And then I looked up the videos on Twitter, and she was waiting for that moment. And just to bypass that, because we don't need to give that person we give the security guard praise for doing their job, but we don't need to give the person that was protesting their just due, because that's not what you do at an NBA court, or at not even an NBA arena, just anywhere period. You just run out and do something like that. But bypassing that the second half was a game of runs. It was Memphis go on a run, Minnesota go on a run, Memphis go on a run. I think it was like 12-0 Memphis, then it was like a 10-0 Minnesota run, then it was like an 8-0 Memphis run. So like that game was a game of runs. And then Minnesota pulled away late. Cat, I think, got like 33 and he had like 12, I think, something like that. And then Anthony Edwards poured in his 21, and Patrick Beverly had his 17 points. The funniest moment of that game was Cat's interview, where he deepened his voice out of nowhere. And that had the timeline going. That had the timeline laughing its butt off on Twitter. And the Grizzlies, they played a great game in game four. It was just Cat was a better decision maker than he had been, and he was making quick decisions on the fly, whether it was finding his teammates or attacking the rim on smaller defenders. And going to game three, just getting back to or going to game three, as we know, when we did episode 4, that game was the Wolves were up by 20 multiple times. And I don't know what happened, but after we finished that recording of the episode, I literally checked my phone and the Grizzlies had went on a 21-0 run, and Chris Finch didn't call a timeout, which was very surprising. And I was shocked that I caught the fourth quarter after we finished recording. And that quarter was, I think, a Desmond Bain like 3-point shooting performance. They also got key production from Brandon Clark and Tyus Jones off the bench. And even though Ja has struggled in the series, particularly game 3 and game 4, he was able to play make and get easier shots for his teammates, which is, I mean, what a point guard does, especially if they're struggling. And I mean, just this series as a whole, I mean, I think game 6 is tomorrow. As the Grizzlies are up 3-2. I want to see a game 7 because that's what I think I said. So I'm hoping Minnesota wins so that we could get the illustrious game 7 in Memphis. But I wouldn't be shocked if Memphis closes out tonight or tomorrow. What's your thoughts on this series?
First off, I would say apologies if you can hear the train in the background. If you know, for anyone listening, you know the movie The Polar Express, where the kid wakes up like at night and because everything is shaking. That's like where I live. Like that's how close the train is. It's like the same thing. So I'm sorry if you can hear that. But to game five, Game 5 was so fun to watch from like a fan perspective. And I called it 2. Me and George were not watching the game together, but I did call it 2. I've been seeing a lot of TikToks on like a hammer screenplay that the NBA likes to run. But a lot of the times, or a lot of the clips I've seen, they kind of run that hammer screen on the weak side off a baseline drive and dishing to that corner, and that corner is always open. But I knew, I was like, called a timeout coming out of it. I know it's going to be some type of hammer screen. An open look is going to show up. Someone is going to be wide open off a pass, catch and shoot, knock it down. That's exactly what happened. And honestly, late in that game, that's like the only play that they were running, like on both for both teams. Like they were just playing like almost like a hero ball, like give Ja the ball and go, or like try to get the ball. At least D'Lo was like try to get the ball to whoever, and then late in the clock they would just kind of go one-on-one for a shot. But I don't know, man. The more I watch Ja, the more like sometimes I don't think he has a bag, but it's also like maybe I'm just a casual and he's doing the smart thing, trying to draw a foul. Um, his little hang time plays, like put your head down, try to poster someone real quick. Sometimes I'm like, what? Why? Or I think he took a transition 3 uh, late in the fourth, or like midway through the fourth, maybe like 8 minutes, 5 minutes, somewhere around there. Took like a transition 3. It wasn't like a heat check 3 or anything. That's why I was like, what? Why would you shoot that? Like, not that you had numbers, but the defense was not set at all. You had a couple guys running the lanes. Why are you just pulling up for 3 like that? But it could be Ja Morant's just the style of play, like late in the game, because I don't want to say I don't like, but maybe just I'm not accustomed to seeing, because we haven't really seen a player like Ja Morant like that in a while. And I saw this clip on JJ Redick, or from JJ Redick, and I think it was JJ Redick, and I want your opinion on it, saying that like talking about like basketball geniuses who JJ thought were basketball geniuses. He mentioned Rajon Rondo, mentioned Chris Paul, and then another guy he mentioned was Ja. Talking about how he sees the game and how he plays the game, reads situations, offensive, defenses, and saying that Ja, this early in his career, what is this, year 3 for Ja?
Three.
year three for him that he's already a basketball genius. Um, we're no NBA player. We're no don't know anything near the amount that JJ Redick knows on the game of basketball and anything. But just thoughts on that statement.
I'm not shocked by it just because I mean, as I said, Ja in this series, yes, he's kind of struggled to score at times, especially game 3 and game 4. But as I said, he's made plays for his teammates. He's gotten easier and better looks for his teammates, which is what a point guard should do. I mean, he mentioned him in the same breath as Rondo and CP3, who are two of the player point guards from our generation who were great, who were traditionally pass first point guards, setting their teammates up first. And so in year 3, I mean, I'm not shocked to hear JJ Redick put him in the same breath as those two. I mean, JJ Redick probably is one of my favorite analysts on ESPN since he's become part of the media. And so I'm not gonna like doubt his opinion. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say he's in that tier, but he's pretty close.
Yeah, agreed. I think by the end of his career, I mean, I guess it depends on how you define a basketball genius, but I think John Moran is going to finish somewhere near there by the end of his career. Definitely in that conversation. Shout out to JJ. Love that guy. My favorite clip of JJ is when he tears up. I forget who he was like going back and forth with, talking about like Chris Paul. I think it was Chris Paul or like
Oh,
Bob Cousy.
Chris
Um,
Russo.
yeah,
He's a baseball analyst.
but yeah, how are you arguing with an NBA player about basketball? But whatever. That's one of my favorite clips watching. But hold on, pause. Live update. The Sixers just closed the series, beat the Raptors. Sixers won 132-97. You have anything to say about that?
Not surprised. They needed to close this out. Maybe they needed to close out and I'm gonna say dominant fashion. They didn't need just a regular win. From what I'm looking at in the stats, it looked like Maxi had 25 and 8. Harden had 22 and 15 on good efficiency for both. They both shot 50+% from the field. Joel had 33 and 10 rebounds. So I mean, they needed this in dominant fashion. I mean, just looking at the stats, the starters look like they scored 25, 22. That's 47, 66, 99, 111. Yeah, so they scored 111. The starters scored 111 points out of the 132. So I mean, in terms of the Sixers facing the Heat, I don't think they're going to they're going to get performances like that where the starters are going to score the bulk of the points just because the Heat plays great defense. So, and I said this going when they made the Harden trade, the bench was going to need to step up. I mean, the good thing for the Sixers is that they're going to have Matisse Thybulle for all of the next round instead of him only playing 3 games. But he's going to be pretty much the X factor in this next series versus the Heat because the Heat are going to leave him open and say you're going to have to make your threes. But in terms of the Sixers closing out tonight, I'm not surprised they needed to do it just for the sake of their fan base and the media creating narratives of choking a 3-0 lead for the first time possibly. But the Sixers, they needed it.
No, for sure. And I think they're going to be tested by Miami in this next round. Let's move on to back to the West. Another live update, 3 minutes left. Suns Pelicans, Suns up 1. Let's talk about what we've seen in this series thus far. Then maybe by the end of this episode, we might give you a live reaction on if Phoenix can close the series or not.
All right. By the way, sorry if I'm looking at my phone a lot. I mean, we have both these games on right now, and obviously the NFL draft is today. And so I'm looking at the draft picks so far, and two of them are honestly surprising, but you'll hear about football stuff you'll see my football stuff on Twitter. But going back to basketball in the playoffs right now, Chris Paul has 29-6, and he's made every single shot he's taken 13 of 13. So you're getting the Chris Paul masterclass in terms of the points scored. DeAndre Ayton has 20-7 on 81% shooting. One thing I'm surprised, obviously, Mikal Bridges 16 points, and he's played 41 minutes. So the Iron Man of the Phoenix Suns doing what he needs to do to wrap up this series. One thing I am pretty shocked about is Devin Booker. It looks like he is on a minutes restriction as he came back tonight, but I don't know if he came back tonight because he's fine, or if he came back tonight because he wants to close out this series, because they originally listed him as out for 2 to 3 weeks, and for him to come back in a week, maybe 6 days, it kind of gives me the sense that he rushed himself to get back. And as we all know, sometimes rushing yourself to get back can create an aggravation in the injury that you previously had. But I mean, right now Phoenix is looking good. As for the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram has 17, 5, and 11 in 41 minutes played, and he's shooting 46% from the field. Herb Jones has 16 points on 55% shooting. He also has, oh, I don't think I can see steals. Oh, no, I can. He has 4 steals. So he's locking up on the defensive end. CJ McCollum has 16 points, but he's shooting 43%. So kind of a low efficiency type of game for him. And I mean, just from what I've seen on my phone, from the notifications I've seen on Twitter, Jose Alvarado is being a pest once again, like always. As as I as I call him, the Puerto Rican Patrick Beverly, because he is literally Patrick Beverly just without the whole antics. But this game is 101 to 100. Phoenix is leading by 1 with 2:35 left. I mean, we'll probably see the rest of it after we finish recording. But so far, I mean, Phoenix in game 5, they showed why they were the best team in the league. Came out in the first half, I should say, and dominated. I think Chris Paul had like 22 and 11, and Mikal Bridges finished with like 31 to lead the way. And then game 4 was basically the opposite in terms of the Pelicans kind of dominating the second half. And that was honestly, in all my years of watching basketball, which going on 16? I mean, 16 of watching basketball, but like probably at least 9 in terms of watching it like profoundly, just in terms of like trying to make a career out of it. That was one of the first times, if maybe even the first time, I've seen Chris Paul flustered. He could have gotten ejected, even though, excuse me, even though I believe that wasn't a foul, not a foul, a flagrant 2 foul, as many people said. I mean, obviously, Chris Paul kind of has a history of dirty plays and stuff like that. I'm not going to be on my bias BS to say that was in a flagrant 2, but that was one of the very few times I've seen him flustered. When I knew he was flustered when Jose Alvarado got the 8-second violation on him, and he had that deer in the headlights look. And that's when I knew that like Chris Paul was like not mentally, well, you could say mentally, sheesh. Mentally, he was like psyched by Herb Jones and Jose Alvarado. And the one thing I saw from that game was after Chris Paul after Chris Paul committed the foul on Herb Jones. I think it was like 3 plays later. I forget what happened, but Herb Jones, I don't know if he got fouled or what actually happened, but he was on the ground and Chris Paul walked over to help him up. And Herb Jones literally he literally sat there as if like Chris Paul wasn't even like there with his hand out. It was just like the ultimate gamesmanship was being played at that point. Like, yeah, you're a veteran. Yeah, you're the point guard. You're probably going down as a first ballot Hall of Famer. But at this moment, like we're enemies. Like your resume doesn't speak to what we're trying to accomplish as a team. And that's when I knew like the Pelicans were for real. And as for game 3, I mean, it was just a Chris Paul masterclass. You had, I think, like 28 and 10 along to go. And DeAndre Ayton poured in like 28 when he came out firing on all cylinders. I think he had like 13 points in the first quarter. And that's what you needed without Devin Booker being there. And as for the Pelicans, I mean, this team runs on Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, and you can add Jonas Valanciunas playing well. When those 3 play well, they're kind of hard to beat, as we see tonight and in game 4. And then, I mean, the supporting pieces off the bench, Jose Alvarado, Herb Jones, you have Trey Murphy, Najee Marshall. You also have, did I say Larry Nance Jr.? Okay, yeah, Larry Nance Jr. Once those guys start pitching in off the bench, like they're a tough team to beat, as we've seen throughout this series. But what's your takes on this series?
Yeah, just like back to what you said about Chris Paul being flustered. I think you're absolutely right. Jose Alvarado is in his head right now. But yeah, when you said that, I kind of thought, I was like, damn, have I really, like, when was the last time I seen Chris Paul kind of losing his handle, or not even losing his handle, just like kind of throwing off his game? And the last time I could think of was in last year's run, when he hurt his hand and he came back and he like could not dribble. Like he cannot get the ball up the floor. And I know he talked about it too, like on JJ Redick's podcast. I think after the season, talking about like how he really could not dribble. He couldn't even shoot a basketball, but he told Monty Williams, like, I'm playing. But yeah, Jose Alvarado's doing a great job for him being a rookie and guarding a top 5 point guard ever in the playoffs. What happened?
Oh, sorry. Football news. Well, two things. In terms of basketball, as we're speaking of Chris Paul, I just seen a tweet from Brian Windhorst saying Chris Paul is having the best like shooting game in playoff history. No one has ever shot 13 of 13. I mean, maybe there's been 100%, but no one has shot 13 of 13 from the field. So that's one. And then 2, just in terms of football, not Debo Samuel, because that's my team. Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown just got traded from the Ravens to the Cardinals.
I thought you were about to say Debo just got traded. I was going to say, for George, this news, we would have had to stop the podcast if that happened.
Yeah, I probably would. You probably
Debo Samuel got traded.
You would have heard me crying. But you can keep going.
Face. I was like, hold on, George, what happened?
Yeah, you keep going.
Where were we? But yeah, Chris Paul, I mean, shoot, turn it around. Maybe Jose Alvarado isn't all that if this man is 13 for 13, almost a 30-point double, 10 assists. So we'll see what Chris Paul does. But I think the Pelicans, I think just in general, whether they win the series or not, I think this is a bright spot in the Pelicans like franchise. Just with everything with Zion, him, like, you know, who knows if he actually is injured or anything at this point. But having to play in the play-in, making it out, and pushing the best team in basketball to a tough series is great for them, great for an organization. You have, like, your rookies are showing out, like Herb Jones, showing out right now. Jose Alvarado, undrafted, showing out right now. Even Trey Murphy, who's been one of the quiet, like of the rookies of the Pelicans, he's probably the quietest one, but I don't think he's had a terrible season either. Like those are three bright spots for you. And yes, me and George, a bit of homers talking about the Suns, but I just want to say CJ McCollum is one of the most entertaining players to watch, like on the offensive end. Even if he has a bad game, check the box score, he probably has 20, and he makes it look like the smoothest 20 points you've ever seen. Um, I love the scoring punch that you get out of him and BI. And BI has been playing amazing in this series. But back to the Suns, I think getting Book back is going to be crazy. Not just for the rest of the series. Obviously, it looks like they're about to close it out right now.
Yeah,
But for
Chris
the
Paul
next series,
just scored. Chris Paul just hit his 14th basket. He is 14 of 14.
and you're gonna argue with someone saying he's not top five. No, okay, we're not we're not gonna get into that debate.
No need to argue that point. Like it's ridiculous. I watched that segment and literally, and the same guy that, and I used to like First Take, but ever since Max has left, like it's been there's some stuff I just can't watch anymore. The same guy literally said that Chris Paul was like not even top 8 point guards of all time.
Okay, that's
He had
absurd.
I'll give you the list. He had Magic number one. Like the top
Fair,
the first three were like okay. He had Magic
fair.
one. Who was second? Was it he had Magic one? I think Isaiah was two, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he was three. I can't remember who was number two off the top of my head. He had Jason Kidd at four. He had Steph Curry at five. Then he had Kuzi at six, I think, or Stockton at six, Kuzi at seven, Nash at eight, and then Chris Paul.
Man, I mean, if you're going to argue Magic Johnson's the greatest point guard ever, I'm not even going to argue with you. I think that's just like a tomato type thing. Um, but saying Chris Paul is in a top five point guard ever is kind of crazy. I think when you look at numbers alone, maybe there's a case, but even then, Chris Paul's resume, literally the only thing missing is a championship. He's done it all. Like I think first off, okay, hold on. I think John Stockton has two maybe unbeatable records in all-time assists and all-time steals. And I think the closest person we've ever seen to close to that is Chris Paul. Who knows if we're going to see and maybe assists, we might see someone like a Luka or a Trae Young come after him uh, in that stat. But steals, I think, I don't know. I think Chris Paul's the most complete. I don't know. Oh, we're just going on a tangent, or I'm just going on a tangent about Chris
No,
Paul right now.
you're good because just in terms of football's getting crazy.
Hey, we might have to end this podcast right now. Forget the Mavericks and the Jazz. Let George watch the NFL draft.
Bro, not the Browns, the Eagles just traded for AJ Brown. So now I'm getting worried that Devo might leave, might be traded. I'm getting worried.
Hey, we got to finish up quick then so George can handle that on on his own time right now. But hold on, real quick. Do you have any words for this Mavericks Jazz series as we both watch the Suns try to close this game out right now?
Mavericks Jazz, Mavs should close out tonight. I don't care exactly what happens with the not I don't I shouldn't say I don't care what happens with the series, but the Mavs should close it out tonight. As I said, the Jazz have no perimeter defense. You can't have Rudy Gobert try to guard the paint and guard out the perimeter because it's obviously physically impossible. So the Mavs should just pick and roll and drive and kick the Jazz to death tonight. Just send them home at home. Uh, Send them to Cancun because I know it's pretty cold in Utah. And and I can actually start pushing my Donovan Mitchell to the New York Knicks agenda finally, because I'm sick and tired of him being in this situation. I hope he does play well tonight because, I mean, game 5, he put up a stinker. Uh, I mean, in terms of this series, the Mavericks, Luka should put at least a 30 ball, and Jalen Brunson should add his 20. And literally, it just comes down if the Mavericks shoot 40% from three, and they get production from Maxi Cleaver, Davis Bertans, Spencer Dinwiddie, so on and so forth, they should win this game in dominant fashion.
Yeah, I think the Mavericks. Well, I just want the Mavericks to just close this series so we could stop talking about the Jazz. I don't know if you could tell by the past couple podcasts. I don't really like the Jazz. I don't really like talking about the Jazz right now. And for those listening, George has been pushing this Donovan Mitchell to the New York Knicks agenda for about a year now, and I've had to hear it from him on different scenarios on how he can get there, whether it's trades, whether it's free agency. Any chance he has to talk about Donovan Mitchell going to the New York Knicks, he'll do it. So you know what? At this point, I'm rooting for George and I'm rooting for Donovan Mitchell to go to the Knicks.
I'm
And I
telling
think
you,
it's going to have the highest probability after this game, after Luka drops 50 points in Utah and closes the series, the greatest villain the Western Conference has ever seen, Luka Doncic. But yeah, I don't. If the Jazz push this to 7 and win the series, I'd be very much surprised, even though I had them. We both picked the Jazz in 6, but we didn't know that Jalen Brunson was going to be the number 2 punch that Luka needed in this series. So yeah, can we both? Maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I'll hold off on that specific statement. But
make a prediction for.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. But I didn't want to say like, oh, so Suns Mavericks the next round. Who you got? Just because technically the Suns game isn't over, even though it might be over.
I mean, I'm watching it right now. We'll see what happens. Bi takes the shot. It's off. It's still Pelicans ball with 5.6, but it's effectively over.
George is testing out his play-by-play career right now.
Hey, I practice that all the time. But yeah, it looks like the Suns game is going to be over. They're gonna wrap up this series. And I mean, if you want, we could do a Mavs Suns prediction. I mean, I think we both have the Mavs winning in like less than 10 minutes right now.
Okay, hold on. Regardless of who wins Mavericks Jazz, would the Suns win in the next series? Yeah, yes. I think we can both agree that both of our picks are, regardless on who wins this, we're taking the Suns. And yes, final score 115-109. Suns win. They close it. Moving on to the next one. Yeah, playing book probably was worth it just to close the series out. Have them rest until the next round is played. So, yeah, went through every playoff series. Had live reactions. We have play-by-play color commentators in this podcast too. Had a little bit of NFL draft. We had George Schefter over here. Is that his name?
No, we don't mess with Adam Schefter after what he did with Dwayne Haskins. No offense, Shefty. Oh, that was low blow.
Yeah, not cool. Forgot about that completely. I take that back. I'm sorry.
Call me George Rappaport. Ian Rappaport is my guy.
There it is.
Heck, you can even say Sham since he spoils the draft now.
Oh god, he's doing that in football too.
Yeah.
Hey, just know, for everyone listening, by the time the NBA draft comes around, and if the NBA draft is in progress, do not text me because my phone will be off for the entirety of the draft because I do not want picks. I don't want to know the picks before they happen on my television screen. But that's besides the point right now. I think that wraps up the episode. Episode 5. It feels cool doing this. Usually George closes us out, but here I am doing it. So this was episode 5 of the 4 Out 1 In podcast with your host George Hamilton III.
All right. Yep. George Hamilton the third here.
And Carlos Costas. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. Sign out.